Thanks for joining us on Putting the Real in Real Estate. I am Art Wood, Artwood Mortgage Team, your host, your favorite mortgage guy on the planet, with my dear friend. Yes, I tell them that I'm their favorite mortgage guy on the planet, even if they didn't know, now they do. But I'm here with my friend, Lisa French, who we have known each other for 150 years at least, I think. And what's going to be mostly the most hilarious thing about this whole podcast is I'm deaf in my left ear right now. She's deaf in her right ear,
No, my left ear.
Left ear as well. So we may sound like the retirement community, but welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So as I told you earlier, the point of doing this is to make agents feel better about what they're going through. Misery loves company, but or success begets success, whatever, either way. And really for the common public to come out there to say, holy crap, I had no idea you did that much. So why don't you just take the next 90 seconds, 2 minutes, however long it takes you to say, who is Lisa French, family, friends, where you're from, where you start, all that stuff.
Okay. Who is Lisa French? So I am originally from New York, New Jersey, but I've been here 27 years.
You're a Southerner.
Sort of. And let's see, I've got a husband, Greg. I've got 2 grown kids. 3. So we've got Tana and Jonathan and Shantae. I've got grandchildren.
I know.
I've got Shantae's son actually just got accepted to Morehouse.
Holy crap.
So he's going to be coming down and going to Morehouse. And Tana's son is 21 months old, and we are about to have a new baby girl in like a couple of weeks.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
So is being a grandma as good as everything says?
Oh my God.
Better than being a mom?
I am so obsessed with Hudson. That's my grandson. I'm so in love with that kid. Like I didn't know that was possible.
Right.
And everybody said that. And I was like, yeah, it's a baby. He's going to be cute. He's going to be fun, whatever. I'm just absolutely in love with him.
It's great. All right, keep going.
Before real estate, I had a 25-year career in program management, engineering program management, and supply chain management for contract manufacturers.
Tell me in layman's terms, because I'm not that bright.
Okay. If you took a computer or a set-top box and opened it up, okay, the people that I worked with either designed it or we put it together. And I could tell you every single component that's in that.
Awesome. That lends itself well to real estate.
Yeah. But what does lend itself well to real estate is the project management background that I have and the supply chain management. Like it was honestly a very natural transition for me, just because everything is schedules, everything is money, everything is budget and ROI. And, those are all languages that I have been speaking for my whole life.
So 25 years in the corporate world. When I met you, you were not in the corporate world. You were a personal trainer.
I was still in the corporate world, but I was doing both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I knew that.
You didn't.
All right.
Yeah, because we had our training studio, because my husband's a registered licensed dietitian. So we had a training studio, Action Fitness. And he was doing that while he worked his real job. And I was doing that while I worked my real job as well. So.
All right. I did not know that. I did. I don't remember. It was back in 2008, I think, when we met each other.
It was a long time ago.
It was, things were different in 2008. Yeah, I actually had held a networking group back then, Business After Hours, and I think that's how we.
I think you might have come to one of our Power Core meetings first.
May have.
I think that was when I initially met you, and then you invited me to the Business After Hours.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting with the Business After Hours, even. Watching how that grew, shrank, changed. We started out in 2008 and we had upwards to averaging 85 people come to this happy hour.
There were a lot of people that used to come.
If you remember, we started letting people, because people were in a lot of hurt back in 2008. Us, mortgage folks and real estate folks were dying. I always say that somebody's getting rich in every economy. There were still people getting rich in 2008. It just wasn't real estate. But then you step into COVID. And we made a ton of money.
Right.
So, but yeah, we were letting unemployed folks come in for free. And it's funny, my dad always said, dance with the one you brought to the dance. As soon as people started coming out of that recession, people stopped coming to the event as much. I'm like, but wait a minute, that's what got you where you were.
Right.
So, and then we went from there, had to brand it as Fuse because somebody said Business After Hours was trademarked by somebody else who couldn't use that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that's why you changed from
That's
one
why we
name
had to
to the other.
change the
Okay.
name because somebody said cease and desist. I'm like, come on, man, this is such a small thing. But I owned the business Facebook.com/business after hours, and they wanted it anyway. And then we're fused, and then we got down to about 25 people coming for happy hour, and then we decided to make it a breakfast group.
Yeah, I think the reason that I had stopped coming to that was because when we closed our studio, I was full swing doing my engineering project management
Other than
stuff.
just hanging out with friends, you had no reason to do it.
Exactly.
Now you do.
So, yep.
Anyway, so 25 years. What happened?
So before COVID was COVID, before anybody knew that this happened, China shut down. They were shut down for the Chinese New Year. And
which is when?
It's like in the beginning of January.
January.
Sometime in January. And shipments to our facility had stopped because they normally do, and everything's scheduled. So when China's supposed to start shipping again. Sorry, I talk with my hands all the time.
That's all right.
And they didn't start shipping, and everything was closed. The whole country was basically shut down, but nobody knew why. And it was this big mystery. And we couldn't get product, and we couldn't ship product. And I worked for a smaller sized contract manufacturer at the time. And so we had to scale back 70% of our workforce. And there were only 2 people who could do my job, me and the CEO.
All right.
So guess who got to stay? It was not me. So anyway, so after that,
so that was early on 2020.
Yeah, that was right in the beginning. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And of course, my entire industry wasn't hiring. My entire industry was shut down and layoffs were happening left and right. And I had thought about going into real estate a few years before, and I had done all the classes, and I could just never sit for my exam because of my schedule. So I actually called Pat Soltis, and I said, okay, I've known her for forever. And I said, I'm kind of thinking about this, what do you think? And she was like, absolutely do it. So I did, and I went and I worked with her team and her, and I never looked back.
And that was 2020?
That was 2020.
That's great. I find that realtors have varying levels of success, especially that first year. Do you remember what your numbers looked like that first year?
I hit the ground running. I mean, I really did. It was, and I guess maybe it was because we were right in the middle of COVID and there was so much activity and so much business. And I think then realtors it was either feast or famine.
Yeah.
Either they were doing great or they weren't. I was one of the lucky ones, and I did great. I mean,
so what were your numbers?
I was a top producer all the way up until today.
You don't remember your numbers?
I don't. You know what's funny?
Only from 1918, I don't remember.
I don't. If you ask me today how much business I have dollar-wise for this year, for last year, I really can't tell you because I don't track the numbers that way. I track my number of transactions.
Okay.
And I have, I have my pipeline and I have my plan. I have my goal, but I really don't pay that much attention to the numbers.
Well, it's not like,
it's something I probably should do.
I don't know. I mean, you have your plan, you execute your plan. And if you execute, that's the thing about strategy is you're like, I want to be here. And you break it down to the smallest steps. As long as you exercise the plan, then.
Yeah. Like I'll look, because as realtors, I'm sure everybody does this. When you're co-broking with another agent, you tend to look them up, right? How long have they been in business? Whatever. And there are some agents I look up and they've maybe done 1 transaction in 4 years. And then there are others that I look up that have done 50 in the past year. And I'm thinking, the way that I work, I don't want to do 50 in a year because I feel like for me personally, I can't do what I want to do and have the relationship that I want to have with my clients. Maybe that's wrong, but
I'll poke holes in that in a second.
Yeah. So I don't really look at the numbers that way.
Right. And I would say, I think it's, I remember before I went out on my own and opened my own branch and stuff like that, there was a guy that was literally working 12 hours a day. And at the time that was back in 2008, and he's working 12 hours a day. He was making $500,000 a year, had no life, ended up getting divorced. And I'm like, I don't need to make that kind of money. So I can make half of that money and work half that amount of time. And it becomes a conscientious decision. So, the 50 a year, yeah, you can do that, but you've got to have the teams and you have to have processes and stuff. And I'm not that great at that. I think you and I are wired very similarly, where we want to provide that high touch and we want that relationship. We want those friends afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's hard to give that up. And I would say that's probably a place that we could probably both look at for growth to say, how can we still do that? TR's sitting on the other side of the camera, and she's great. She and I are very similar in the high touch, and so it does allow me, again, it allows me either to make more money, to do more loans, or go on more vacations. One or the other, which are both great. So you went with Pat, a friend of mine as well. And what was the reason you went with Pat?
Well, I knew her. I knew she was a name, in the local industry. I had a relationship with her, and I knew that there was a lot I could learn from her. And I was right. I mean, I have no regrets about that decision whatsoever.
And then recently you switched, right?
Correct. Recently, I left the team that I was with for 6 years, and I went to a different agency. So I'm with North Group now.
Okay. And I knew it was North something, so I wanted you to say it before I made a fool out of myself. So talk to me about, or talk to them or whatever. What is, because there's different seasons in your career and different places you need to be successful. There's teams, there's not teams. What are the differences? Why did you switch? All that kind of stuff.
So for me, I think it was just kind of a personal thing because, I started my career on a team. I've always been on a team. I didn't know how other brokerages operated, how they did things, I didn't know. I only knew what I knew.
Right.
And there were things that I feel to get me to my next level that I wanted to do for me, that I just felt I needed to try it on my own. I was just ready. I feel like a team is great for mentorship.
Yep.
It's great for camaraderie. It's great for a lot of reasons. It's great because
motivation.
We had an office. I mean, how fabulous is that? I
Yep.
paying for ink, but so there are just a lot of factors involved, and it took me a very long time to make the decision. It was a very hard decision for me.
Well, because your relationship with the team and with Pat.
And once I realized that me leaving does not end that relationship, that's where I was comfortable.
Right. Well, the great leader, and I know Pat is is a great leader. Yeah, I'm sure it went something like, I hate to see you to go, but you need to do you. And
I'll tell you what, I've never been more stressed about a conversation or worried
I'm
about
sure.
it. And she was so supportive, and she was just very, she gets it. I mean, she's had probably 40-year career, 50-year career in real estate in every capacity. So she understood where I was coming from. She understood it wasn't anything personal. It wasn't anything against the team or against SRA or
one of her children are flying the coop.
And I give her a lot of credit with getting me to that point where I was able to take that leap, where I feel confident to go and do it, where I've built my business and now it's just time for
I think it's great
for the next level.
And I think I look at the same thing in mortgages. It is nice to be around other professionals and motivate you. I remember back in the day when we'd have a good rate week or whatever, we were all in the office and dialing for dollars and we'd start, I got one or whatever. And it's like, and there's motivation to that because there's competition as well. But I like in the mortgage side is leads versus referrals. Leads are quicker. And so teams, I think, makes your success quicker. But referrals and being 100% referral based and knowing that that's coming in is a career. So that's awesome. So tell me, what is something that you know what? I was going to shift gears. What's the difference between somebody that starts in real estate and kicks ass, hits the ground running versus somebody that doesn't? Because they think it's easy, they go get their license, they go tell a couple of friends.
Yeah, I think honestly the best thing I think Pat has ever said to me when I got my license, she said, "You will be very surprised by the people who use you, and even more surprised by the people who don't." And those were very powerful words.
Yeah.
And they were very true.
Yep.
And I think it's all about personality. You have to have a thick skin. You have to be okay with a friend of yours going with somebody else and not even asking you because somebody knows everybody knows somebody in real estate. Somebody's got a cousin, a sister, a best friend's mom, everybody. So you have to not, in my opinion, you can't have that expectation that things are just going to come to you and things are just going to happen and people are just going to give them to you and give you business. One of the reasons that a lot of people think they don't use friends for their realtor or even for their mortgage is because, I've heard before, well, I would have used you, but I didn't really want you in my finances.
Yeah.
And my big thing is, I don't know your finances. I don't care what your credit score is. I don't care how much you've got in the bank. Like, that's not my job. That's your job. That's Art's job. All I care about is, what does Art tell me you can purchase? And let's figure out the best path for you. Let's get you the best deal. Let's get you the best everything, right? So that was one. But I think somebody has to have a thick skin, not take things personally, even though sometimes it feels very personal.
I take it all personally. I can't help it. I'm one of the top mortgage guys in the country, and I take it all personally, and it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, that was something I had to work through. But, I also have very thick skin, so it takes a lot.
You're from Jersey.
Exactly. But I think you have to have that drive, that go getter. I'm going to make shit happen, right? Not sit around and wait for it to happen. Because if you think that you're doing business because you put out a business card or you stuck up a sign or, you went to one meeting or
you have a magnet on your car,
you bought a billboard or what, like, that's not why you do business.
Right.
And you can't sit around and wait for people to come to you.
So what are some things that you did in that first year that when you say you hit the ground running, what did you do to get out there?
What did I do? First of all, I worked a lot of open houses.
Yeah.
Biggest myth about open houses is that it brings buyers. It doesn't bring buyers. Sellers like you to do open houses because it's exposure, obviously.
Brings neighbors.
It brings
nosy neighbors.
But what it does bring for realtors is it brings potential clients.
Right.
So I worked every open house that I could get and, tried to get myself buyers. So literally the first, up until last year, I was 70% buyers and 30% listings.
Okay.
Last year, I was 90% listings and 10% buyers.
That's a big flip in 1 year.
It's a huge flip. It's a huge flip.
Which that had to be some interest rate stuff too. I mean, I don't think that was all just you. I think that was market driven as well.
Well, I mean, it's honestly, for me, last year was a lot of repeat clients. There were a lot of repeat clients and a lot of referrals from clients. One that I closed a deal with we found out it funded this morning, so that was good. But just Friday, I closed 2 deals with her. I've done 5 deals with her over the past 3 years. So, it's really building that relationship and using your network and your sphere of influence to your advantage. I'm not a cold caller. I'm not a hard sell person. As a matter of fact, marketing, all this stuff, I hate everything about it. I cannot stand it. Like how you're out there and you're like, yeah, I'm Art Wood. I'm your,
So you're not going to create a podcast?
No.
She was dreadfully scared about coming on this. She's doing a great job. Applaud you.
No, I will talk to anybody all day long, but I'm not. Want to be on video. Yep. I'm not, it's just not my natural thing. And there are some people that are so good at it. And I see these videos that other realtors do and on Facebook and everything. I'm like, God, I wish I could do that. But I have no desire to do that.
I think there's not I think what you said, first of all, you hit the ground running and you got to treat it like a business. I've always had a problem with multi-level marketing schemes because they sell it as a get rich quick, and that's what I think a lot of the general public thinks about real estate. It's like, whatever, go get your license and you'll just post, tell your friends and you'll post a few Facebook stuff, you'll buy whatever, and all of a sudden you're going to be instantly successful. And it's not that. You got to pick your lane. And the open houses, just to kind of brag on Lisa a little bit, I just talked to one of her clients this morning that they had a habit of going to open houses to check out real estate agents and put them to the test. And Lisa just passed that test this past weekend. So she's still doing it. And that's another thing when you look at longevity is, dance was the one that brought you to the dance. It's like, what got me to be successful in the first place? And I got to keep doing it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is showing value, right? You're not just somebody who's just there to take their money.
Glorified taxi driver.
Right. You've got to show value, so that you actually have a clue what you're talking about. And, and I tend to be very respectful of people as far as like not harassing them, not calling them, not, because I don't like that when it's done to me.
Right.
But there are some people that are so good at it. And I'm like, wow, I wish I could do that. But also, you got to be who you are.
Absolutely. You got to be authentic. You got to be genuine. Well, what was something that you did not know you were getting into? I mean, it was like, you're like, oh my God, I wouldn't have done it if I would have known this, or I just had no idea it was this hard, or how much time, or.
I honestly haven't found that yet. I haven't had that be, and the reason why is because I was always a workaholic anyway, and I was a workaholic at my office for someone else, 12, 14 hours a day, weekends, whatever. It didn't matter. So now I'm still 12, 14 hours a day, weekends, nights. I mean, I have clients that'll text me at 2:00 in the morning just because they might work a different shift, or they're up for prayer, and they'll text me something and I answer. I don't sleep, but that's one thing. But I haven't. Now, I've had a couple of things that happen that have said, well, who knew I would be doing this one? I've learned a lot of skills that I never thought I'd learn.
Like?
Well, I can rekey a door. I can, I know how to get water out of a crawl space. I mean, just the things that come up are infinite. It's really crazy. And it's every day it's something new. So yeah, I do a lot.
So as an experienced agent now, one of the things that I find, do you set boundaries? Like, I hear some very successful real estate agents say it's okay to, somebody says, hey, I need to go see his house now. And, and a lot of agents, especially new agents, will jump when they say jump. And then more experienced agents, more successful agents will be like, that's great. I've got whatever now. Can you do it at 5:00 or whatever?
So it really just depends on what is going on at the time. When I'm working with new clients or existing clients, I always try to tell them, ahead of time. Like, for instance, I'm going out of town this weekend. So everybody knows I'm going out of town from Thursday to Sunday. You can call me. I'm going to be working. I will, we can still do whatever. And if there's something you absolutely need to see, I will get somebody to show it to you. That's not a problem. I don't necessarily drop everything to go show a house or whatever. Depends on the client, the situation, and my personal situation. There's a lot of times that I'm like, absolutely, let's go. Let's go now.
If you can, you can.
And there's a lot of times that I'm like, I have my grandson, so can we do it at this time? Or, is this so urgent that you really need me to find you somebody to show it? Because I have a network of people that I can get. I've never, I know there are agents that keep business hours. Their phone shuts off at 7:00 at night.
Right.
Ask any one of my friends. We'll be at dinner and I'm, texting clients, writing contracts, whatever from the table, and they're all yelling at me. So maybe I should set those boundaries. I don't know, but I really don't have them. But I have learned that it's okay to make an appointment for myself, that I can say every once in a while, I do need a day off. And I can say, hey, I can't do Monday, but how about Tuesday or Wednesday? Again, it's also, scenario dependent, but that's one thing that I have learned, that it's okay to make an appointment for yourself, because you don't have to say, I need me time.
Right.
All you can say is, I have an appointment from 10 to 2. So maybe I'm getting my hair done. Maybe I'm getting my nails done because they have to be done. But,
Yeah, I went to a therapist at one point, and with my wife, and her complaint at the time was, I have my phone at the dinner table, and I said, I said, well, I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. She looked me dead in the eye. She goes, you are.
Powerful.
So my phone does not, the family dinner table, it stays away from the family dinner table. But you're right. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years, and you can ask my wife. I have not been on a vacation. I've been on trips.
Go on vacation,
right?
But you don't.
Yeah, I mean, during 2020 and 2021, I averaged over one deal a day, including weekends and everything else. So 386 actually. And so I remember being in St. Augustine, and I had to spend half the time, in the living room with a computer, doing all that stuff. So it's fine. I mean, I know, we all get it. There's certain times where, like, hey, we bought a mountain house, and the the realtor said, called me and said, this just hit the market. This was in 2020 and things were flying off the market in 4 hours. So he says, get in your car now. And that was a time that he was willing to do that. And he knew the situation. Right. But if there's one that's been on the market for 3 months, we can go see it tomorrow, or whatever. So it's different. So tell me some horror stories. Tell me a horror story that you've experienced in real estate. And I know you've got a couple on going on right now that she doesn't know exactly what she can say or can't say. But tell me a horror story. And then I'm going to ask you to follow up with a success story, one that whether bring tears to your eyes, made you smile, whatever else.
Okay. I can tell you it was a good lessons learned in specificity. Okay.
All right.
I had these clients, they were relocation clients from California, and I had worked with them for months. They ended up buying a house in West Midtown area. Okay. And when we went for the inspection, there was a 2-level, like a 2-story deck. Okay. It was just one level, but it was very, very high. I remember Rick, my inspector, went out and we were standing on the deck and he started shaking it. And I thought the whole thing was going to fall. So he went under and he gave us the list of everything that it needs to have done to bring it up to code.
To not wiggle.
Right. To bring it up to code. So this is what we did. So we wrote out the ATAC, the Amendment to Address Concerns, and specified basically everything that he had said in order to bring this up. One thing he didn't say is, and it's not on him to say it, but we didn't say how or in what manner. We just basically said it had to have these brackets, it had to be to this code and, these standards. So when we went back for the final walkthrough, this deck that, it's on stilts, and there was like a door that kind of you could walk out to the yard from the deck, like underneath underneath it, or you could go down this pathway. Well, now there was this big giant X right underneath the deck. They braced it with these, and it looked horrible. My buyers flipped. Rick had said, code, it's okay. Like everything met the standard code, we just didn't specify aesthetic wise. That led to us going to the closing table and the buyers and the sellers arguing and fighting through rooms, me and the agent in the hallway trying to keep everybody calm, the buyers turning on me. Like everybody in those 2 rooms was yelling. And I remember I ended up giving back money to it to just make it right. It wasn't my fault, but it was a lesson learned.
Yep.
And now, mind you, I had spent probably the better of 4 months with these guys. We had become friendly. We saw them constantly when they would fly in and out. I would drop everything for them. And my son was a catcher in college. Mm-hmm. And he stood up at the table and he said, I hope your son breaks his leg.
Wow.
Now, mind you, they've never changed the deck. The deck still looks like it was. It wasn't a problem because they had the yard was fenced and they had this beautiful path that went to this beautiful backyard. But it was that sometimes people are going to push and they're going to fight until they get what they feel like is deserved. And so it kind of taught me a lesson, right? Because it taught me a lesson of you better believe every amendment I've ever written since is incredibly detailed, incredibly
aesthetically pleasing.
There is no room for subjectivity whatsoever. And I have gone toe to toe with agents on that because they're trying to write subjectivity for their client so that their client could get away with something. And I'm like, absolutely not. We're going to say these specific things.
This is the way it's got to be done.
It's not, I'm not leaving things up to interpretation anymore.
Well, a lot of times it's, I don't love the address concerns, amendment address for because the ATAC.
The ATAC.
Thank you. The amendment to address concerns, because there's certain ways that I want you to write it too for the underwriter.
Right.
And so it's like, can we just give closing cost credit? It's so much easier. And maybe that's even a case in point too. It's like, hey, just give us $3,000 in closing costs and we'll fix it ourselves. So,
exactly.
All right. I think I would have swung, at somebody that wished that on my kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And ironically, he did break his leg that year. So.
All right, changing subject because I'm about to cry. So tell me a very positive experience, one of the favorites that you remember.
So I honestly, I have so many positive stories. I mean, the positives 1,000% outweigh all of the bad. But my most positive stories that are the transactions that I walk away with feeling really good. I work with a lot of older people and especially a lot of widows. And I don't.
You mentioned that.
I don't. It's
why.
not something that's targeted. It's just something that I tend to work with. And I fiercely protect them because there are so many people who just try to take advantage of the fact that they don't know. They're doing so many things for the first time. Sometimes they're being bullied by their kids and sometimes they're being ignored by their kids. So you really become a good resource. I mean, I have sat with my clients and gone through their personal items with them to help determine what needs to stay and what needs to go. It's just the amount of time that I put into them. It makes me feel good. It makes my heart happy. And I know that at the end of the day, the best deal, we did the right thing from the beginning for them. I mean, if they've moved, one time they're calling me, oh my gosh, my ceiling fan just fell out of the ceiling. Hold on, my husband will be right there. Right. Like I'm going to be there to help them with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, from packing them, taking stuff to Goodwill, it doesn't matter. And those are the ones that really make me feel the best.
Yeah, I think, and just the level of appreciation. I mean, there's just folks that show it, and then you're like, this is why I do. And some of them, are just transactions, which is what I don't like about the business. I'm so relational, and I want to be friends, and I want to be part of your life. But we just had, I just had one, my old neighbor when I lived on Oakcrest. 11 years, 12 years ago. A neighbor called and they have a special needs daughter that they were buying her a house. And it was so great the way we did it. So Fannie Mae has, some have called it the family opportunity mortgage, where a child can buy a parent a house as a primary residence and have the limited down payment and have the interest rate for a primary residence because they can't afford it, but it's not flipped the same way where a parent can buy a child a house if they can't afford it. They only if they're special needs. Okay. Which I think is interesting. I think that I wish that'd be changed. But so we worked on strategically how to do it so they didn't buy it as an investor property, to make sure they weren't collecting rent and all the things. But the daughter came to closing and she was asking all the questions. I mean, so much more, that her parents were like, okay, Margaret, whatever. But it's like, I mean, I can't imagine the sense of independence that she felt now having her own house. Exactly. So it is those nice stories. And, with the widows too, when my dad died, I watched the widows surround my mom. So I think that's one of the reasons you do a great job for one, that circle, it keeps growing wider. So I think that's great. I've never, and again, I don't think you market towards it. It just comes your way. You put it out into the universe. I'd probably
get sued or lose my life.
No, I've had a financial planner that dealt a lot with women, and especially as a divorced woman, because she had gone through it. And so thank God you hadn't gone through being a widow. All right. Last question. What do you feel like no, I think I already know the answer to that. What do you think is your superpower besides dealing with widows?
I really don't know the answer to that. I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And I think I've always done two things right in my life. Okay. I was a good mom. Yep. And I'm good at work. I'm good at what I do. And I think that's, rather than it being a superpower, I think it's just more of an approach. I'm going to help. I'm going to find an answer, and it doesn't matter if I know it or not. Like, I'm going to be there.
It's interesting because I think ultimately what I'm reading into that is does Superman know his superpower? Is he strong? He's just always been strong. He's always been fast or whatever. It's like, I don't know. It's just who I am. I don't think it's any different than anybody else. And I can tell you are different than a lot of other folks, and I can tell you I'm different, and we're all different from everybody. Right. So it is interesting and humble to be able to say, my superpower is just who I am and how I do the things I do. And I can't really,
that doesn't sound humble.
I know, I know, but it is. I don't know my superpower. I'm no different than anybody else. People have said you should write a book or whatever. I'm going, about what? I don't think what I do is interesting, and they're like, oh, yeah. So I've thought about hiring somebody to follow me around for like 3 months and just write what I do, because I don't know how I do it. I don't know why I'm successful.
I mean, but it's true. It's just, I feel like there's just so many things that just come naturally. And when they work, they work. And, my job is to make it work. And I feel like if I wasn't good at that, I wouldn't be where I am.
You'd be back in the corporate world doing widgets and things.
Doing widgets.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate having you on here. And I hope I hope it didn't stress you out. She was so nervous, y'all. She's like, this is going to be on camera.
We'll see when I see it. I feel like the camera's just catching my nose. So now everybody's looking at my nose.
That's hilarious. Well, thank you again. And good luck to you, and look forward to continue working together and all that stuff. And thank you all for watching Putting the Real in Real Estate. We will see you next time.